Because January 6th was an atrocity. It was one of the worst moments in American history. And when you think about the worst moments in American history, like World War II, things that happened, like the Holocaust, chattel slavery, we need to never forget, because past becomes prologue.
Are we serious right now? Is this actually happening? Are we 4 years removed from the Capitol Hill riot that took place on January 6th, and now we have a mainstream media host, the craziest among the mainstream media hosts, to be fair, comparing it to World War II, the Holocaust, and slavery? Also, I just want to point out that from the American perspective, World War II is not one of the worst periods in American history. It's where we defeated the Nazis, we defeated the Italian fascists, and we defeated the Japanese. So what a weird kind of statement from Sunny Hostin, but this is what we can expect 4 years out on the heels of Kamala Harris becoming the first black female vice president to certify her own election defeat. And obviously, the View hosts, the mainstream media, are absolutely in a tizzy about it, but that doesn't make it any less hilarious. So greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Sean. We're gonna break down this View segment. We're gonna laugh at it, but before we do, I want to thank all of you who support this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
And it's the fourth year anniversary of the D.C. rally based on false claims of election fraud that blew up into the January 6, 2021 insurrection.
Now look, to be 100% clear, I understand that it is difficult on live TV, and even when I'm recording videos on my own channel to say words properly, but Whoopi Goldberg 100% just said election flawed rather than election fraud, or as I like to call it, election fraud, as it should be pronounced whenever we're talking about this. And to be clear, I have talked about January 6th, the darkest day in American history. Where were you on January 6th? I was in a car dealership trying to buy a car, and the guy tried to sell me a car that had frame damage, and he told me it was no big deal, and I was really angry until I looked up on my TV and I saw our democracy get frame damage. I saw our republic get frame damage. I saw world democracy get frame damage on January 6th. Where were you? Where were you? But all joking aside, let's be 100% serious for a second. Obviously, there was a riot, not an insurrection, on January 6th with average everyday people, most of which, by the way, were just moving through the Capitol, but some of them destroyed property and caused all sorts of problems, attacked police officers, and that was unacceptable behavior. That being said, considering this was on the heels of the most destructive left-wing terroristic rioting in American history, I can understand why people out there at the Capitol on that day thought that it was acceptable behavior, because the left wing got everything that they wanted through the significantly worse Black Lives Matter riots. And by the way, if you're saying, oh, but it was the Capitol, it was a government building, our hallowed sacred halls, I will just remind you of a couple of things. First and foremost, in Portland, they had 100 straight days of rioting, including the targeting of a federal courthouse, and nobody cared about that in the mainstream media, and the government of Portland didn't care about that until, of course, Ted Wheeler himself faced rioters on his own personal doorstep. In addition to that, during the Black Lives Matter riots, we had 2 consecutive days of people trying to storm the White House. They set a historic church, on fire across the street from the White House. And in addition to that, the mainstream media decided to mock the president for following Secret Service protocols by moving into the safety bunker, because there were so many rioters outside that were causing such a stir that they felt like the president of the United States was in danger. So if President Trump is in danger, if the Secret Service has to take protocols, that is something to be mocked and derided by the mainstream media. But when you have some people in a larger group and those people are engaged in rioting-like behavior, that becomes a national story for 4 years. We are never to forget it, and according to Sunny Hostin, as we showed in the open, this is on par with the greatest atrocities in world history. It's crazy, it's ridiculous, it's overblown. I'm not taking any of these people seriously, and again, if they cared about rioting, then maybe they should have set the tone in late May of 2020 when the Black Lives Matter riots were just kicking off. Instead, they covered, they deflected, they decided to obscure the fact that billions of dollars in damages occurred due to these riots, and we had all these different people posting videos and talking about how rioting was the voice of the unheard. We had Trevor Noah saying, oh, well, not looting Target hasn't worked to achieve change, so I guess looting Target is okay.
And a lot of people say, well, what good does this do? Yeah, but what good doesn't it do? That's the question people don't ask the other way around. What good does it do to loot Target? How does it help you to loot Target? Yeah, but how does it help you to not loot Target? Answer that question.
So to be clear, I remember the Black Lives Matter riots. I remember all these different View hosts excusing it, denying it, deflecting from it. I remember the mainstream media pretending like it wasn't happening. I remember fiery but mostly peaceful. So no, I'm not going to over-dramatize January 6th as if it was this epic event, when in reality it wasn't. It was one riot in a year, in a 365-day span, where we saw thousands of riots, and I'm just not going to over-dramatize it, and I'm not going to give these people any credence because they have no consistency. My position has always been, if you committed crimes on January 6th, you should be held accountable for those crimes. But the thing is, I also believe that to be true for the much greater crimes that were committed during the Black Lives Matter riots, which is not a position held by any of these people labeling this an atrocity on par with the Holocaust.
The peaceful transfer of power is one of the most fundamental principles of American democracy. Today at the United States Capitol, I will perform my constitutional duty as Vice President of the United States to certify the results of the 2024 election. As we have seen, our democracy can be fragile, and it is up to then each one of us to stand up for our most cherished principles.
President Biden also penned an op-ed warning about the unrelenting effort to rewrite and even erase the history of that day. So is that what happened here? I mean, we all watched.
Yep.
I think most of us saw. I mean, some folks still say that's not what happened, but but what do we do?
So they show the clip of VP Kamala Harris saying that she will definitely perform her duty and certify the election, which, by the way, she did ultimately end up doing on the 4-year anniversary of January 6th. So we can give her credit for that, despite the fact that a bunch of different various people wanted her to not do so. And Kamala Harris herself compared Trump to Hitler, said that he loved Hitler, called him a fascist. So according to her own campaign, she is now handing over power to a fascist dictator named the Evil Orange Man Donald Trump, which again just goes to show you how fake and fraudulent those campaign tactics were, because if you actually believed that Trump was this existential threat, he was this fascist, he was this person that was going to put people in deportation camps, as we've heard time and time again from the mainstream media, then why would you just peacefully hand over power to him? If he's this unique threat to our country, why would you just say, I'm certifying the election, ain't I notable for doing so? Obviously, because it was completely fake the whole time. Trump had already been president. He hadn't done anything fascist. It's been ridiculous as a talking point for a long time, but even more ridiculous after we already saw 4 years of him in office. So yeah, the View hosts can be butthurt about it. They can talk about how hard it is for them to watch Kamala Harris accept her own loss, accept her absolutely devastating defeat. But the fact of the matter is, she not only lost in the Electoral College, she lost in the popular vote, and we all understand that she is an all-time loser in terms of a presidential candidate.
I think we need to find moral clarity, in this country. And I just remember after January 6th, you had someone like Mitch McConnell placing the blame on January 6th where it belonged, squarely on Donald Trump's shoulders. And then you started seeing people backtrack that and losing their moral center. You had Condoleezza Rice, I believe, on this very show saying, we need to move on from January 6th. I say no. You don't move on, because January 6th was an atrocity. It was one of the worst moments in American history.
So prior to Sunny Hostin going into this crazy, insane rant about how this was the greatest atrocity in human history, we end up hearing about how she was upset that Condoleezza Rice had told people in the left-wing media that maybe it was time to move on from January 6th. And she's mad because she says we should never move on from it, we should never stop talking about it. But in reality, that was actually a bit of sage advice from the neoconservatives that never liked the evil orange man in the first place, because they ran an entire campaign Spain based on that pretty much. And guess what? They lost historically. Obviously, people weren't going to be too concerned about that one day of individual rioting, and they tried to stretch this out, make this the story for 4 years straight. And the fact of the matter is, the American people weren't buying it. So Sunny Hostin's refusal to get out of that media bubble to understand that is exactly why they lost the election. And again, it shows how out of touch these people actually are. Now, of course, the famous, infamous clip, whatever you want to call it, I'm about to play now, and I just find this to be hilarious for a number of reasons.
And when you think about the worst moments in American history, like World War II, things that happened, like the Holocaust, chattel slavery, we need to never forget, because past becomes prologue if you forget any race.
So look, this is obviously an unhinged rant by Sunny Hostin, but what do we expect from a race hustler like her, somebody who absolutely hates the opposition, other than these ridiculous dramatics? But I do want to point out again that unless you hate America, World War II is not a black mark on American history. In fact, we call the generation that fought in World War II the greatest generation in American history. That's how much they are beloved. That's how much that was a victory in our history. But to compare it to the Holocaust is just insane. Again, one person, I believe, died on the MAGA side that was shot by a cop. No police officers were killed, despite the fact that they do every little dirty trick to amp the casualties. And maybe I might be missing one or two people that ended up dying because they had a heart attack due to the excitement. But overall, one person was killed. It was Ashley Babbitt, and that was on the MAGA side. In addition to that, she then compares it to chattel slavery. And for Sunny Hostin, chattel slavery is the worst thing ever. In fact, black people are owed money due to the fact that there was slavery in this country, and we have to talk about slavery all the time because it's the greatest thing about the United States of America, why our nation is so evil, the original sin, and all that. And of course, this also happens to be even more hilarious because Sunny Hostin herself comes from a family that not only owns slaves dating all the way back to Spain, but when they abolished slavery in Spain, they moved to Curacao in order to keep their slaves, and then they were abolished again in Curacao, but they moved to Puerto Rico again to keep their slaves. So she comes from a family of slavers. That's who she is. That's who her family has always been. And all we're seeing right here is the product of the guilt that she feels over that. And again, I will play you this clip when she discovered that she, in fact, does come from slave owners.
Wow. I'm a little bit in shock. I just always thought of myself as Puerto Rican, half Puerto Rican. I didn't think I was, my family was originally from Spain and slaveholders.
Yeah.
So for Sunny Hostin, somebody who is obsessed with slavery, obsessed with throwing it in people's face, obsessed with hating white people, to use that as a way to go after January 6th, which again was a small riot compared to the Black Lives Matter riots that happened, was significantly less bad than the Black Lives Matter riots, to me is an absurdity on top of an absurdity. But again, this is the left-wing progressive bubble, that anything the evil Republicans and the evil Orange Man does is absolutely Hitler, Nazi, slavery, terrible, but all the crimes that the left wing commits, those are to be supported because that's the voice of the unheard.
I'm incredibly grateful to the January 6th committee. I'm incredibly grateful to the members of that committee, including Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger, the two Republicans who agreed to serve on it, because no matter how much they try to rewrite it, erase it, whitewash it, just lie about it, the truth is in that report, and it will stand the test of time.
So look, most of the good stuff in this particular view segment comes from the Sunny Hostin rant. You have all these other people talking about our hallowed democracy and all of that, but I did want to point out that they decided to take time out of their day to praise Liz Cheney, once again, a very unpopular strategy. The neocons are incredibly unpopular in the United States of America, and I just want to point out that the folks involved in the second Bush administration, which by the way, Liz Cheney was involved in the second Bush administration, did way more damage to our country than not only January 6th, but then the Trump administration did. And the idea that we're going to hold them up as the pillars of democracy when they did all these different civil liberties violations is absurd. It's ridiculous. And again, it just goes to show you how fake these people are, because once Trump's out of power, once there's distance between between Trump and the next Republican whoever, these same people are going to be hearkening back to officials in the Trump administration that come out against the future administration in order to heap praise on them, because every single next Republican, every single current Republican is evil Hitler tyrant, but the past ones, oh, well, we're kind of nostalgic about them.
Yeah.
What do you think will happen with this country when and if Donald Trump fulfills his promise to exonerate, basically, and pardon those that committed crimes, including assaulting police officers on January 6th? He says he's going to do that on day one.
Yeah, well,
in an effort to basically erase what happened.
I know, but, this is what he says he's going to do. Let us see if he is able to do it. I don't know that he's going to be able to do it, or how it's going to sit with the American people.
Yeah.
That's the tricky part for him.
Yes.
Because he doesn't know
how people will react to that.
So we then hear from Sunny Hostin that she's very upset that Trump is going to exonerate, pardon, or commute the sentences of people who participated in January 6th. But the fact of the matter is, they have used crazy terrorism enhancements against these people. And considering the Black Lives Matter rioters ended up getting paid out by a bunch of different major cities, I'm not going to be all that upset with people being pardoned who only trespassed because they were directed into the building, and people who get commuted who committed crimes that got unnecessary terrorism enhancements and whatnot. Because in reality, in actuality, there was an over-punishment of certain individuals. That being said, if you assaulted police officers, if you're damaging stuff, if you're breaking stuff and whatnot, I actually don't want you to be pardoned. I actually do not want you to get a commutation unless, of course, you have an insane enhancement on your sentence that's inappropriate. So I do think some care and craft should go into this particular policy, but Sunny Hostin, who tries to get convicted black murderers who murder white people out of prison time and time again, has no leg to stand on, because she thinks if you're black and you murder a white person, you are the victim of racism. And we've gone over cases on this channel where she claims people are innocent, and then we've shown you the overwhelming evidence against them, just so you can realize where she's coming from on the criminal justice issue. So she has no leg to stand on in this regard. She wants guilty people out as long as they align with her political beliefs or align with her racial politics, and I find that to be disgusting. But of course, I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. How do you feel about The View reacting to Kamala Harris having to certify the election? Did you laugh a little bit when Kamala did certify the election? All your thoughts down in the comments below. As usual, if you liked the video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about The View melting down over the election. Till next time.